Joining us, we have the MP for Couva South and UNC Shadow Minister of Labour, Rudranath Indarsingh. Pleasant good evening to you, sir, and welcome once again.
A pleasant good evening to you, Mikee K, and of course, it's a pleasure for me to be back on the Observer.
Thank you so much. A lot has taken place, of course, today, and I know that you do have some commitments later on this evening, so we'll hit on the core issues right away. The anti-rate increase demonstration, which of course took place in your constituency earlier today, and you call on T&TEC to reject the RIC rate increases and collect the outstanding $1 billion. I mean, give us an idea, because I mean, people have been talking about this. They seem as though they have reached the boiling point or the tipping point, as the case may be, where there's a demand for more, and yet still there seems to be less to go around. What brought this up today, of course?
Well, there have been some, community activists, civic-minded people who seem to be up in arms against the recommendations of the RIC to increase residential rates from 15 to 64%. And of course, if you also increase commercial rates, it will impact upon the overall cost of living. People are struggling, Mikee K. 150,000 persons have lost their jobs in this country. Point Lisas, Point Pierre, Santa Flores are ghost town with the closure of Petrotrin, the mothballing of companies on the industrial estate. The energy sector has collapsed in the country in spite of they wanting you to feel the dragon dancing and oil will come from the dragon gas deal. Single mothers cannot buy food. Persons who are working on the minimum wage cannot provide bread and butter on the table. And here you have a government now that after 5 fuel increases, food inflation is over 30% in this country. They want to tell you now that you must pay more for electricity. And we are saying, having listened to the friends of Couva today, they are saying that not at this point in time, there needs to be this is a recommendation that has come from the RIC, and the T&TEC Board of Commissioners are appointed by the Cabinet of the Prime Minister, and the ultimate responsibility lies in the Prime Minister, the Minister of Public Utilities, and the Cabinet to display some kind of humane approach as it relates to the continued impoverishment, the growing social inequality in the haves and have-nots in the country. And the friends of Couva are saying that the government must reject the recommendation of the RIC in terms of this recommendation.
But you have the finance minister, of course, today making a statement that it still, of course, has not been cemented. It hasn't been given the green light, as the case may be. Was this a situation of trying to see how far they can push this issue, where people may have just accepted it or not expecting, of course, some sort of pushback?
This is a deceitful government. They are full of propaganda. They mislead you. They are strangers to the truth. So I do not trust them in terms of their utterances. Today I see it, but planting it in Couva. People have spoken out, and I hope that people can see in the wider Trinidad and Tobago that there are voices of dissent, there are voices of opposition, and they can seek to build on what transpired in Couva and send a message to the government to roll back on the recommendation. It is a recommendation. The government does not have to accept it wholeheartedly.
Right.
And that is why the friends of Couva also embarked on signing, getting signatures to a petition calling upon the minister. They are saying that within the next week, they hope to drop these signatures on the doors of the Minister of Public Utilities and the chairman of the Board of Commissioners of T&TEC.
But not only that, I mean, basically you're correct. I mean, when you're looking at what is taking place here, and there's not much at all to go around. Last night we spoke to economist Indarsingh, who made it quite clear, that middle class has been wiped out. It has been wiped out.
I want to agree with economist Indarsingh that the middle class has been destroyed by this government. They continue to be pulverized with policies that are destroying the ability of the middle class to earn. Persons are living on 20, 13 salaries and so on. When you have food inflation at between 20 and 30% fluctuating, and you offer them 4% as a wage settlement, where does this leave you in your ability to look after your children's education, development of families, the overall acquisition of homes, the ability to buy school books and so on, and I could go on and on and on. And that is why I'm saying that the government has to soften the blow at this point in time, because they want to push down property tax down your throats, where persons living on the minimum wage going to find additional money to pay property tax.
And that's the point, MP Indarsingh, because at the end of the day, again, we've heard nothing about direct investments being made, whether locally, regionally, or even any global perspective, as far as companies who are coming in. We've heard nothing as far as how we are going to rejuvenate this economy, because consumer confidence is at an all-time low. No one is going to let go of $1 if they're not guaranteed how it's going to return, or if they're going to get $2 from that $1. But in this situation, you're also talking about $1.4 billion owed to T&TEC.
And where is the government's plan to collect this debt, this outstanding money? Where is their plan to make, from a policy position, to get the Board of Commissioners to make T&TEC more lean and mean, more efficient, cut out the wastage, the allegations of corruption we have heard over time and time again from representatives of the recognized majority union, the OWTU, and so on. And I think that this is where you have to have effective communication with the people of the country, and sadly, it is lacking from the Minister of Public Utilities, and by extension, the Prime Minister and the cabinet of this country.
Now, compounded with the fact as well is that when the announcement was made in the budget, as far as $1 billion in back pay, there were citizens who were saying, okay, maybe we have something to offset all of these expenses that we expect in 2024, property tax, rate hike in T&TEC, food prices, what have you. Now, it's a different story. One has to ask if there was any sort of communication, consultation, any sort of strategy that was laid out as far as the process to get this money into the hands of individuals the minute they started hearing tra-la-la-la. Now the reality is that we're hearing that this money may be paid out, and it's not back pay as a matter of fact as it's been defined, but it's money that is rightfully owed to citizens who work for it. And now we're hearing next year, sometime perhaps after Easter, that this may become a reality.
Well, again, you are quite right. This is not back pay. This is not something that was gifted to the workers. This is something that was due to them as a result of what I would call a hijacked collective bargaining process. It was never free. It was never independent. It was never free from political interference. The Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance hijacked the collective bargaining process from day one. The CPO, the Chief Personnel Officer, was never really allowed to negotiate with the recognized majority unions. The government, through the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, from day one had been moaning and groaning and griping about the size of the public service and any wage settlement in terms of the cost implications and so on. Any government that has to govern Trinidad and Tobago knows that collective bargaining takes place on a 3-year basis. They know the size of the public service, and they have to, within the day-to-day operation, medium and long-term, factor in that there will be cost implications when there is a 3-year collective bargaining period, unless if you want to eliminate unionized terms and conditions and put all public servants on contract and dismiss them in terms of your obligations from that point of view. And at the end of the day, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and the entire cabinet has been was gleeful saying that 37,000 public servants will benefit from $1 billion before Christmas. The Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, and the Minister of Finance, they have previous cabinet experience in the administration of Prime Minister Patrick Manning. And of course, you have to consult, because if you commit the government in a budget presentation, you should have had the responsibility from a leadership point of view to ensure, as your minister, as the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, I see you have this paragraph on back pay for public servants. Do you have the money? Do you have the approval, the financing? Do you have the adequate staff in the relevant ministries and so on to get the generation of pay slip, the computation of what is owed to each public servant, so that we can get this payment out? Then we hear of allegations where the Prime Minister said that a permanent secretary did not want to cooperate with the government, and how public servants feel they're bad when the PNM in power. You know, my information is that a permanent secretary at the Ministry of Education told the Minister of Education that the process needs additional staff for computation of person salaries and what they are probably owed as a result of the 4% payment. I think it is about 15,000 teachers. Mm-hmm. And the permanent secretary told the minister, I think, that they did not have the capacity to ensure the computation and the whatever generation of pay slips and whatever from an administrative point of view to have it effected by Christmas. It was not willing to work or not cooperating with the government or playing bad when the PNM is in power. It was one of making a legitimate request for additional manpower to facilitate the processing of the payment. And the government seemed not to be in sync with what needs to be done. And that is why I'm saying that the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance were caught with their pants down. They were not proactive. They did not understand what are the challenges confronting the payment. You just don't go and attempt to appease people with public relations and put a paragraph in a budget presentation.
Yeah. And especially if you know there's nothing behind it. There's no substance. I mean,
there's no substance.
And especially at this time of the year where people are saying, listen, man, we have been struggling for the past 8 years. We went through COVID, the mismanagement of it. Perhaps this may be something that could be some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, and then to find out, listen, it's not going to happen. People made plans. They put all kind of things in place, only to find out now that this was just a pie in the sky, according to the good people who are on the live. Let me ask you as well, as far as, because I know you've got some stuff that you have to take care of. You spoke about Minister Stephen McClatchy, who is the Labour Minister, and that incident that took place with Kern Etienne, the employee of the Water and Sewerage Authority, who was buried alive while carrying out emergency repairs on a sewer pipeline in San Fernando, and we send our condolences to the Etienne family. But very unfortunate, and sometimes I want to be honest with you, many of us don't even know that the Minister of Labour actually exists, because, I mean, very few input, he doesn't really say much. So what are we looking at as far as the whole Labour process that's taking place now, if any at all?
Well, unfortunately, I don't want to speak about Minister McClatchy's professional background and so on, but he seems to be out of depth as the Minister of Labour as it relates to addressing health and safety issues in Trinidad and Tobago in the work environment, because at the end of the day, under Minister McClatchy, I think we have had the most number of industrial accidents, whether it was the explosion at Naikwan, the 4 deaths at Paria, the industrial accident at Naikwan, which resulted in the death of Alan Lane Ramkisoon, and now the unfortunate demise of Mr. Etienne in the context of Wassa and so on. And one has to ask the question, where is the Occupational Safety and Health Agency, which falls under Minister McClatchy? And I am sure that Minister McClatchy must be very proactive and aggressive in getting occupational safety and health inspectors out in the field to ensure that employers in the public and or the state sector and in the private sector are adherent to safety protocols and guidelines and responsibilities under the Occupational Safety and Health Act. I was very flabbergasted to learn, and unless today the Minister of Public Utilities said, and it is on the parliamentary Hansard, because I asked him if the WASA has completed their internal investigation into the incident. Yeah. He said, no, it is an ongoing process. He committed himself to saying that when WASA conducts its or finishes the completion or completes its internal investigation, the report will be made public. That is fine. But President General of the National Union of Government and Federated Workers, Comrade James Lambert, is alluded to have said in the public domain that WASA failed to secure the accident site in accordance with Section 47 of the Occupational Safety and Health Act as it relates to the preservation of accident sites. And the site was quickly filled up within probably an hour or two after the death of Mr. Etienne. So how could a thorough investigation take place?
Yeah, after everything was tainted. Final thing, because I got to wrap up here. Final thing, if you could update us, please, on the issue of the threat to decertify the pilots union.
Well, apparently the government understand the implications of that, because if they go in that direction, it will be mayhem and chaos within the trade union movement, I'm sure, because an attack on one is an attack on all, and probably good sense has prevailed. But the PNM cannot change its skin, you know. They tried it under Prime Minister Manning to decertify the Transport and Industrial Workers Union at PTSD and the Communication Workers Union at TSTT. So probably good sense has prevailed, and because we committed ourselves that if indeed they went that way, if we return to power in keeping with the laws for registration, recognition, and certification and due process, we would restore that recognized union majority status to TALPA.
Thank you so much, comrade. It's been a pleasure as always. All the best to you and the entire team. Best of luck. And we will, of course, be checking in with you periodically. Thank you so much again.
Thank you very much. Have a pleasant night, and to your listening and viewing audience.
Thank you so much.